Milan Cathedral is the cathedral church of Milan, Italy. Dedicated to Saint Mary of the Nativity, it is the seat of the Archbishop of Milan, currently Cardinal Angelo Scola. The Gothic cathedral took nearly 6 centuries to complete. It is the 5th largest church in the world and the 2nd largest in Italy. History. St. Thecla's Milan's layout, with streets either radiating from the Duomo or circling it, reveals that the Duomo occupies what was the most central site in Roman Mediolanum, that of the public basilica facing the Forum. The first cathedral, the new basilica, dedicated to St. Thecla, was completed by 355. It seems to share, on a slightly smaller scale, the plan of the contemporaneous church recently rediscovered beneath Tower Hill in London. An adjoining basilica was erected in 836. The old octagonal baptistry, the Battista Palio Cristiano, dates to 335 and still can be visited under the Milan Cathedral. When a fire damaged the cathedral and basilica in 1075, they were rebuilt as the Duomo. Rebuilding begins in 1386. Archbishop Antonio da Saluzzo began construction of the cathedral. Start of the construction coincided with the ascension to power in Milan of the Archbishop's cousin Gian Galeazzo Visconti, and was meant as a reward to the noble and working classes, who had suffered under his tyrannical Visconti predecessor Barnabo. Before actual work began, 3 main buildings were demolished: the Palace of the Archbishop, the Ordinary Palace, and the Baptistry of St. Stephen at the Spring, while the old Church of Star Maria Maggiore was exploited as a stone quarry. Enthusiasm for the immense new building soon spread among the population, and the shrewd Gian Galeazzo, together with his cousin the Archbishop, collected large donations for the work in progress. The construction program was strictly regulated under the Fabbrica del Duomo, which had 300 employees led by first chief engineer Simone da Orsinigo. Orsinigo initially planned to build the cathedral from brick in Lombard Gothic style. Visconti had ambitions to follow the newest trends in European architecture. In 1389, a French chief engineer, Nicolas de Bonaventure, was appointed, adding to the church its Renaissance Gothic, a French style not typical for Italy. He decided that the brick structure should be panelled with marble. Galeazzo gave the Fabbrica del Duomo exclusive use of the marble from the Candoglia quarry and exempted it from taxes. 10 years later, another French architect, Jean Mignet, was called from Paris to judge and improve upon the work done. As the masons needed new technical aid to lift stones to an unprecedented height, Mignet declared all the work done up till then as in pericolo di ruina, as it had been done sine scientia. In the following years Mignet's forecasts proved untrue, but they spurred Galeazzo's engineers to improve their instruments and techniques. Work proceeded quickly, and at the death of Gian Galeazzo in 1402, almost half the cathedral was complete. Construction, however, stalled almost totally until 1480, for lack of money and ideas. The most notable works of this period were the tombs of Marco Corelli and Pope Martin V and the windows of the apse, of which those extant portray St. John the Evangelist, by Cristoforo de' Mottici, and St. Eligius and San John of Damascus, both by Niccolo da Veraglio. In 1452, under Francesco Sforza, the nave and the aisles were completed up to the 6th bay. In 1500 to 1510, under Ludovico Sforza, the octagonal cupola was completed, and decorated in the interior with 4 series of 15 statues each, portraying saints, prophets, sibyls and other characters of the Bible. The exterior long remained without any decoration, except for the Guglielmo della Medeo, constructed 1507 to 1510. This is a Renaissance masterwork which nevertheless harmonized well with the general Gothic appearance of the church. During the subsequent Spanish domination, the new church proved usable, even though the interior remained largely unfinished. and some bays of the nave and the transepts were still missing. In 1552 Giacomo Antegnatia was commissioned to build a large organ for the north side of the choir, and Giuseppe Mida provided 4 of the 16 pails which were to decorate the altar area. In 1562, Marco di Agrazia Street, Bartholomew and the famous Trivoltio candelabrum were added. Borromeo. After the accession of Carlo Borromeo to the archbishop's throne, all lay monuments were removed from the Duomo. These included the tombs of Giovanni, Barnabo and Filippo Maria Visconti, Francesco I and his wife Bianca, Galeazzo Maria and Lodovico Sforza, which were brought to unknown destinations. However, Borromeo's main intervention was the appointment, in 1571, of Pellegrino Pellegrini as chief engineer, a contentious move, since to appoint Pellegrino, who was not a lay brother of the Duomo, required a revision of the Fabrica's statutes. Borromeo and Pellegrini strove for a new, Renaissance appearance for the cathedral, that would emphasize its Roman, Italian nature, and subdue the Gothic style, which was now seen as foreign. As the facade still was largely incomplete, Pellegrini designed a Roman-style one, with columns, obelisks and a large tympanum. When Pellegrini's design was revealed, a competition for the design of the facade was announced, and this elicited nearly a dozen entries, including one by Antonio Barca. This design was never carried out, but the interior decoration continued. In 1575 to 1585 the presbytery was rebuilt, while new altars and the baptistry were added. The wooden choir stalls were constructed by 1614 for the main altar by Francesco Brambilla. In 1577 Borromeo finally consecrated the whole edifice as a new church, distinct from the old Santa Maria Maggiore and Santa Tecla. 17th century. At the beginning of the 17th century, Federico Borromeo had the foundations of the new facade laid by Francesco Maria Riccini and Fabio Mangon. Work continued until 1638 with the construction of 5 portals and 2 middle windows. In 1649, however, the new chief architect Carlo Buzzi introduced a striking revolution. The facade was to revert to original Gothic style, including the already finished details within big Gothic pilasters and 2 giant belfries. Other designs were provided by, among others, Filippo Uvara and Luigi Vanvitelli, but all remained unapplied. In 1682 the facade of Santa Maria Maggiore was demolished and the cathedral's roof covering completed. In 1762 one of the main features of the cathedral, the Madonnina's spire, was erected at the dizzying height of 108.5 meters. The spire was designed by Carlo Pellicani and sports at the top a famous polychrome Madonnina statue, designed by Giuseppe Perego, that befits the original stature of the cathedral. Given Milan's notoriously damp and foggy climate, the Milanese consider it a fair-weather day when the Madonnina is visible from a distance, as it is so often covered by mist. Completion on May 20, 1805, Napoleon Bonaparte, about to be crowned King of Italy, ordered the facade to be finished by Pellicani. In his enthusiasm, he assured that all expenses would fall to the French treasurer, who would reimburse the Fabrica for the real estate it had to sell. Even though this reimbursement was never paid, it still meant that finally, within only 7 years, the cathedral had its facade completed. Pellicani largely followed Buzzi's project, adding some neo-Gothic details to the upper windows. As a form of thanksgiving, a statue of Napoleon was placed at the top of one of the spires. Napoleon was crowned King of Italy at the Duomo. In the following years, most of the missing arches and spires were constructed. The statues on the southern wall were also finished, while in 1829 to 1858, new stained glass windows replaced the old ones, though with less aesthetically significant results. The last details of the cathedral were finished only in the 20th century. The last gate was inaugurated on January 6, 1965. This date is considered the very end of a process which had proceeded for generations, although even now, some uncarved blocks remain to be completed as statues. The Duomo's main facade went under renovation from 2003 to early 2009. As of February 2009, it has been completely uncovered, showing again the colors of the Candoglia marble. In November 2012, officials announced a campaign to raise funds for the cathedral's preservation by asking patrons to adopt the building's gargoyles. The effects of pollution on the 14th-century building entail regular maintenance, and recent austerity cuts to Italy's culture budget has left less money for upkeep of cultural institutions, including the cathedral. To help make up funds, Duomo management launched a campaign offering its 135 gargoyles up for adoption. Donors who contribute €100,000 or more will have their name engraved under one of the grotesque figures perched on the cathedral's rooftop. The figures serve as drainage pipes. Architects and engineers: 1387 Simone da Rossinigo, 1387 Zeno da Campion, 1387 Marco da Campion detta da Frixino, 1389 Giacomo da Campion, 1389 Nicola Bonaventura o da Beneventus di Francia, 1389 Stefanino Ottaviano di Castelspria, 1391 Giovanni Fanache di Frimbigo, 1391 Giovannino de Grassi, 1391 Lorenzo degli Spazia da Campiano di Lino, 1391 Marco da Corona, 1391 Enrico di Gamodia, 1394 Beltramo del Conigo, 1394 Ulrico Fussingen di Ulma, 1398 Salomone de Grassi, 1399 Antonio o Antonino da Paderno, 1399 Gasparino da Corona, 1399 Giacomo da Venezia di Parigi, 1399 Giovanni Minotto, 1399 Giovanni Conarocova di Bruges, 1399 Erasmina de Sertori, 1400 Filippo degli Organa, 1401 Polino da Rossinigo, 1404 Antonio da Paderno, 1406 Cristoforo da Ciona, 1407 Leonardo da Sertori, 1409 Giovanni Magatto, 1415 Antonio da Muggio, 1416 Bartolo Maio di Modena, 1420 Antonio da Gorgonzola, 1430 Franceschino da Cannabia, 1451 Giorgio degli Organa da Modena, 1451 Giovanni Solari, 1452 Antonio da Firenze detta il Filarete, 1458 Donato da Sertori, 1459 Bonifacio Ginforte Solari, 1476 Pietro Antonio Solari, 1483 Giovanni Nixemperga di Graz, 1486 Giovanni Antonio Amadeo, 1490 Gian Giacomo Dolce Buono, 1506 Cristoforo Solari detta il Gobbo, 1512 Gerolamo della Porta, 1519 Bernardo Zenale di Treviglio, 1524 Gian Giacomo della Porta, 1526 Cristoforo Lombardo, 1539 Baldassare Vianelli, 1547 Vincenzo da Seregno o Seregni, 1567 Pellegrino Pellegrini detta il Tiboldi, 1587 Martino Bassi, 1591 Lelio Buzzi, 1598 Aurelio Trazzi, 1609 Alessandro Bisnato, 1617 Fabio Mangon, 1617 Giovanni Paolo Bisnato, 1631 Francesco Maria Ricchino, 1638 Carlo Buzzio o Buzzi, 1658 Girolamo Quadrio, 1679 Andrea Biffa, 1686 Giambattista Quadrio, 1723 Antonio Quadrio, 1743 Bartolomeo Bollaro Bolli, 1760 Francesco Croce, 1773 Giulio Galeori, 1795 Filisove, 1801 Giovanni Antonio Antolini, 1803 Leopoldo Pollock, 1806 Giuseppe Zanoja, 1806 Giuseppe Pollock, 1806 Carlo Amati, 1813 Pietro Pestagali, 1854–1860 Carica vacant, 1861 Giuseppe Vandoni, 1877 Paolo Cesa Binci, 1904 Gaetano Moretti, 1907 Luca Beltrami, 1912 Adolfo Zacchi, 1963 Antonio Cassi Ramli, 1964 Carlo Ferrari da Pisano, 1988 Benigno Morland Visconti Castiglione. Architecture and art. The plan consists of a nave with 4 side aisles, crossed by a transept and then followed by choir and apse. The height of the nave is about 45 meters, the highest Gothic vaults of a complete church. The roof is open to tourists, which allows many a close-up view of some spectacular sculpture that would otherwise be unappreciated. The roof of the cathedral is renowned for the forest of openwork pinnacles and spires, set upon delicate flying buttresses. The cathedral's 5 broad naves, divided by 40 pillars, are reflected in the hierarchic openings of the facade. Even the transepts have aisles. The nave columns are 24.5 meters high, and the absidal windows are 20.7 by 8.5 meters. The huge building is of brick construction, faced with marble from the quarries which Gian Galeazzo Visconti donated in perpetuity to the cathedral chapter. Its maintenance and repairs are very complicated. In 2015, Milan's cathedral developed a new lighting system based on LED lights. Aesthetic judgments. The cathedral was built over several hundred years in a number of contrasting styles, and the quality of the workmanship varies markedly. Reactions to it have ranged from admiration to disfavor. The Guida d'Italia, Milano 1998 points out that the early Romantics tended to praise it in the first intense enthusiasms for Gothic, as the Gothic revival brought in a purer taste. Condemnation was often equally intense. John Ruskin commented acidly that the cathedral steals from every style in the world, and every style spoiled. The cathedral is a mixture of perpendicular with flamboyant, the latter being peculiarly barbarous and angular, owing to its being engrafted, not on a pure, but a very early penetrative Gothic. The rest of the architecture, among which this curious flamboyant is set, is a perpendicular with horizontal bars, across, and with the most detestable crocketing, utterly vile, not a ray of invention in a single form. Finally, the statues all over of the worst possible common stonemason's yard species, and look pinned on for show. The only redeeming character about the whole being the frequent use of the sharp gable, which gives lightness, and the crowding of the spiry pinnacles into the sky. The plastered ceiling, painted to imitate elaborate tracery carved in stone, particularly aroused his contempt as of gross degradation. While appreciating the force of Ruskin's criticisms, Henry James was more appreciative. A structure not supremely interesting, not logical, not commandingly beautiful, but grandly curious and superbly rich. If it had no other distinction, it would still have that of impressive, a measurable achievement, a supreme embodiment of vigorous effort. Main monuments and sites. The interior of the cathedral includes numerous monuments and artworks. These include, at the left of the altar is located the most famous statue of all the cathedral, the Saint Bartholomew flayed, by Marco the Great. The saint shows his flayed skin thrown over his shoulders like a stole. The Archbishop Alberto d'Argentimano's sarcophagus, which is overlooked by a crucifix in copper laminate. The sarcophagi of the archbishops Ottone Visconti and Giovanni Visconti, created by a Campionese master in the 14th century. The sarcophagus of Marco Corelli, who donated 35,000 ducati to accelerate the construction of the cathedral. The three magnificent altars by Pellegrino Pellegrini, which include the notable Federico Zuccari's visit of St. Peter to St. Agatha jailed. In the right transept, the monument to Gian Giacomo Medici di Marignano, called Medeghino, by Leone, and the adjacent Renaissance marble altar, decorated with gilt bronze statues. The presbytery is a late Renaissance masterpiece composing a choir, a temple by Pellegrini, two pulpits with giant Atlantes covered in copper and bronze, and two large organs. Around the choir, the two sacristies, portals, some frescoes, and a 15th-century statue of Martin V by Jacopino da Tridate can be seen. The transepts house the Tribulzio candelabrum, which is in two pieces. The base, characterized by a fantastic ensemble of vines, vegetables and imaginary animals, and the stem, of the mid-16th century. In the left aisle, the Archimboldi monument by Alessi and Romanesque figures depicting the apostles in red marble, and the neoclassic baptistry by Pellegrini. A small red light bulb in the dome above the apse marks the spot where one of the nails reputedly from the crucifixion of Christ has been placed. The holy nail is retrieved and exposed to the public every year, during a celebration known as the Rite of the Nivola. In November-December, in the days surrounding the birthdate of St. Charles Borromeo, a series of large canvases, the quadrini, are exhibited along the nave. Since September 2005, in the cathedral's crypt, beside the relics of St. Charles Borromeo, there has been a video installation by English artist Mark Wallinger, entitled Via Dolorosa. It consists of a 18-minute film reproducing scenes of the Passion excerpted from the film Jesus of Nazareth by Franco Zeffirelli. In November 2014, a white marble sculpture by Tony Cragg inspired to the Madonna statue on the rooftop was installed. The 5-manual, 225-rank pipe organ, built jointly by the Tamburini and Mascioni Italian organ-building firms on Mussolini's command, is currently the largest organ in all of Italy.